China. Being the most populated country in the world and having high-tech technology is setting up a milestone for the world. China is having one of the biggest economies in the world and longest man-made built wall. If put together all of the China's railway line, it can route around the world twice. China is not only having long rail lines but tall buildings as well. Hong Kong, being a Disney hub, is having more skyscrapers than any other country in the world. Another interesting fact about China is that the country is same the size of America but has only one time zone, whereas America is having four. According to Nick and Frank, China showed a remarkable upswing in the economy in past 5 decades, making the country one of the largest economy in the world. China being so advanced and having substantial growth, a majority of its population is leaving its hometown and migrating to another destination. This movement of people is from rural region to urban region, from small villages to large megacities. This migration does not stop internally. The Chinese population took a step further to explore new places outside the country.
From Canada to the US, from Britain to Singapore, from Japan to Australia, Chinese people have traveled and established their communities all over the world. The majority of Chinese population desire to migrate to the North American continent. Here is the history of Chinese people who first entered America. The migration of Chinese people started long ago before 1990s during the California Gold Rush, continuing until the Chinese Exclusion Act in 1882. But there was a significant increase in the rate of migration from 1980s where 384,000 people moved to the US and kept on increasing. The latest report shows that in the year 2016, more than 2 million Chinese people traveled to America for better standard of living. An article by Dara Lind stated that chain migration is one of the reasons for an increase in the number of immigrants in the US. Further, we see the push and pull factors.
We are going to talk with him. Can you share some experience, any problems that you faced or challenges after you came here from China?
The first one should be like language problem, because we don't have the environment like English speaking environment. So the first one I came to here, I had to learn how to speak with local people and also their culture.
The first significant one I have faced the language barriers, and that problem I'm still facing today. I don't even know how to talk to people. I don't even know how to buy stuff in Canada. I think the language barriers is the most significant one.
What is your purpose of
The
travel?
main reason I came to Canada because I wanted to have a better education here. In China, the overall quality of education is not very good compared with the education I can get in Canada.
Question I would like to ask you, is there anything that you would like to change in China?
One thing that needs to be changing in China to do the environmental friendly business, because currently in China we have huge pollution problems, and there's tons of the carbon dioxide emission, and the Chinese government are not really doing much about that, and I think they are taking policies to improve the situation.
I think the biggest problem for Chinese students is that Chinese degree is not accessible worldwide, and the degree cannot be recognized.
So there are potential winners and losers in every scenario. So now let's talk about the winners and losers in America because of the brain drain. The first winner due to the migration process is the education sector. According to Wang Lu, China is a leading source of international students. There is an increase in the number of Chinese students who are immigrating to America to pursue higher education. The second winner in America is the investment sector. According to Forbes article written by Alan Shang, Chinese immigrants are investing a huge amount of money in the tourism sector. According to Forbes, 6.49 billion USD was invested to acquire 25% of stake in Hilton. Further, the Chinese immigrants have also invested in the information and technology sector by acquiring Ingram Micro. So this makes the investment sector a winner in America. The third winner is the housing sector. According to Andrew Corey, in his article for Los Angeles Times, There is an increase in the investment for real estate by foreign bond, and the Chinese constituted for more than $31 million of investment. The other major winner is the government of United States, as there is an increase in the number of students immigrating to the United States to pursue further studies. According to Alana Samuels, rich and affluent Chinese immigrants invest in American companies and are positively impacting the digits of American GDP. So now let's talk about the losers in America. So the major sector that is at loss because of the immigrants entering into the country is the labor force and human capital, or the business sector. There is more competition amongst the common labor force and human capital of the country. According to an article in Los Angeles Times, the potential investors of the real estate market are the losers in America. Because of the immigrants, there is an increase in the demand for the housing property, which leads to an increase in price of the property. Further, as stated in the article by New York Times by Thomas Edsall, immigrants are available to work on a low wage. This makes it difficult for the citizens of a country to demand the wage rate that they deserve and desire, which is a loss for the citizens and natives. The brain drain from China is not only affecting USA but also China. The first winner of the migration in China is the entertainment industry. According to Forbes, to promote Chinese culture and Chinese cinema, the Chinese immigrant invested around $3.4 million in the Hollywood production industry. The other winner in China is the human capital. As a majority of skilled capital is migrating to America, this creates more opportunities for the residents to get a job. About losers in China. The migration affected many sectors in China. The stakeholders of the country had an adverse impact described as. One of them was the Chinese government. The migration of people and their remittance positively affected the government, but the opportunity cost of the immigrants working in the domestic market was quite high when taken into consideration. Next in line, we have Chinese investment sector. An article in Forbes magazine states that Chinese people are tremendously investing in the American market, because of which the Chinese companies bear a huge loss as they eventually lose potential investment. According to an article by Alana Samuels, Chinese businessmen recruited 140,000 people in the United States. Potential employees are highly affected in the employment sector. The majority of the skilled and talented labor capital are migrating to the Western countries, because of which the employment sector goes through ups and downs. The last diverse loser is the Chinese culture. There is a cultural entanglement in China, according to Charlie Jebb, is that the migration of Chinese population is leading to cultural entanglement, which affects the families of migrants, making them a loser in the process.
So, as you saw in the interview, that Sam, Bob, and Kyle came up with the same problem, that there is language barrier. According to Crawford Kara, students in China are taught English from grade 3, and in big cities like Beijing, they are taught from as young as they are 5 years old. According to Crawford Kara, English coaching is constricted to focus more on the grammar and writing skills, whereas speaking and listening skills are ignored. So, the education policy that we recommend is that the school should set English as their primary medium of communication and a preferred language to speak in schools. This will help the youth of China to get hold on the language and fluency in speaking, understanding, writing, and also improve their vocabulary gradually. Schools can also hire more English teachers who have English as their first language to teach students to improve their pronunciation skills. The Chinese government can integrate with more international schools and universities to make Chinese education more recognized and acceptable all around the world. They can integrate with well-known international schools and universities and ask them to build a new branch in China to promote more English medium education centers. For this, the Chinese government can provide subsidies or properties almost at a free rate to their international partners for establishing their branch in China. This might be an initial expenditure for the government, but will prove to be a profitable investment to prevent brain drain and move towards sustainable futures.
The biggest problem faced by the Chinese population is the environmental pollution. According to World Economic Forum, 70 out of 100,000 people die in China because of air pollution. Now, this is a huge problem. According to the BBC News, China implemented a robust policy of banning the private cars by the number plates, taking into account the odd and even digits of the car. Even after this policy, the pollution is still rising. According to the article by Wall Street Journal, 61% of the total pollution is caused by heavy-duty trucks. The policy we recommend is to implement the same odd and even ban on the heavy-duty trucks to reduce the environmental impact. In continuation, the government can also recall the old carbon-emitting trucks and give a subsidy for buying a new electric truck. The Wall Street Journal also says that everyone is responsible for creating air pollution. No one will act if we all just place our hopes in others. The policy that we recommend will have an impact on the economy, in turn will reduce the GDP, but will have a positive impact on the environment. So the last policy that we would like to recommend would be the housing policy. According to the survey done by Los Angeles Times, there were more than 24,000 properties purchased by the foreign bond recorded in the year 2016-2017, and out of which the Chinese immigrants contributed around 31.7 billion worth the property. This makes it difficult for the middle-class citizen to buy a new house. So to address this problem, we came up with an improved housing policy where the government can set up price caps for each class of resident. For example, if we consider a property's original price to be $100, now this property can be sold to a citizen at an original price of $100. But for a foreign born who are not the citizen of the country, will have to pay a premium price, which might be an increase in the price by a certain percentage, for example 20. So now, the immigrants has to pay $120 to buy a house. This will in turn reduce the demand for the housing property, and the government can also restrict the foreign investors by setting up quotas that benefits the citizen and which will act as a gatekeeper for the homegrowns of the country and will also provide them an opportunity to invest in real estate.
The brain drain of one country always leads to the brain gain of another country. This migration of people has positive and negative impacts on the society. China, being so technologically advanced, is still lacking in a few major areas like environmental protection and quality education, which leads to the emigration of its human capital. If taken into consideration the policies and by having nuanced understanding of the problems for people migrating to parts of the world, China can work to reverse this brain drain by implementing policies those benefit the country and move towards a sustainable future.